what I'm going to do is kind of take you through step-by-step process. And at the end of each step, give you an opportunity to answer or ask any questions before we move on to the next step. And then I will conclude with what the actual offer is. And the reason I do it that way is as I'm kind of walking through the offer, it'll help you understand the process of where we are because we've kind of already gone through the steps, if that makes sense. So, first, foremost, again, my name is Ryan Bashore. I am a real estate broker. I'm an attorney, I'm a contractor, I'm lots of other things, but I only work with churches and nonprofits. I've done this many, many times, so if I reach past something or it's confusing, please bring me back in. So, first step is, well, today, this is the before. So you as a congregational church, you have bylaws and a constitution and documents which basically govern how you get through the whole process of day-to-day operations of a church through the potential sale of a church. So you as a congregational church, it comes down to you as the church to make a decision as to what to do. And I'm assuming I haven't read quorum and majority and all those sorts of things and who are voting members and things like that. So as part of this process, what will happen is there will be, it's a corporate resolution is the formal term of it. So basically it's the minutes of today's meeting summarized on one page. So on this date, this many people showed up, this is the matter we discussed, this is what was concluded, and assuming we say yes, we're going to move forward, this is who's authorized to sign on behalf of the church. And that way we don't have to keep coming back every time something needs to be signed to say who's going to sign. If something changes after today through whenever we're done, 9 times out of 10 it's going to trigger another meeting if it's something that's a material change to what's been agreed to today. So an example would be they find there's all kinds of asbestos and all of a sudden they're asking for a drastic reduction in price. That would be material we'd have to come back and have this discussion again. The people who are authorized to sign can't just go, okay. So you guys have control of the congregation. All right. Questions? Because that takes us through our first step. Good. Okay. Before we get to the offer, I want you to understand kind of the escrow process. So escrow is just a fancy term of we've started the transaction day one through closing. And escrow is a third-party intermediary who basically pushes paper and pushes money back and forth. They can't do anything unless everybody's in agreement on it. As part of that process is tight. So the escrow process, I don't know, I'm going to assume, and if you haven't, I apologize, most of you have either bought or sold a home, so you kind of get the process of going through all the disclosures, the inspections, the poking, the prodding, checking the title, checking the boundaries, checking leases, all those sorts of things. It's no different for a church. It's arguably easier for me because there's a lot of disclosures that are required for residential that aren't required for commercial property. But the process is still the same. Instead of 15 forms, there's 10. But it's literally, are you in an earthquake fault zone? Are you in a fire zone? Is your water heater scrapped? Is the paint peeling? Are there roof leaks? Just anything and everything that might be involved with the property. So what I've done from the very beginning is I've come through and taken pictures of everything that I see as a quote-unquote defect. And that could be cracks in the driveway to missing roof tiles. And I will literally note all of that stuff. Even if it's painfully obvious that the driveway is cracked, I'll still tell them. Better to disclose the work. And then same thing with earthquake fault zones and things like that. As part of that escrow process, they get a free look. Their free look is doing their homework to make sure they can worship here. They're not going to have any issues with leaky roofs, asbestos, lead-based paint, things like that. With the caveat, the property is sold as is, where it is, but you still have to disclose what you know and they still get their free look. Assuming they move past the free look process, that's where they actually get their ducks in a row. So they'll have an appraisal done of the property, they'll done their loan documents, and the lender will say, okay, we're going to fund your loan. And during that process, we're dealing with what we need to on our end. Moving things, selling things, throwing things away, informing tenants, doing all that sort of stuff. And then at the end of that process, the closing is literally recording of the deed, handing over keys. So kind of very similar to a residential property. Questions on that step? Okay, so the offer. So, just so you kind of understand the process and who these individuals are. So, this is Healing Streams Church. So, initially, when this has been going on for 6 months at least the first time they saw this property. They've come around, they've had prayer vigils, things like that, to kind of bolster membership to raise funds. So initially when they came to me, they had almost $600,000 in the bank. It was, I want to say just under 600. Now at this point, I believe they're just over 600,000 and said, okay, we're willing to make an offer of at least $2 million, but if the church needs more, we're going to have to go borrow money because we can't exhaust all the money in the bank because then we can't deal with new paint, new furniture, new things we want to do here. So they initially came to the church and said, okay, we'll make sure that Trinity nets $2 million. And in order to net $2 million, the purchase price is going to be something more because that means they're going to cover all the fees and expenses. Obviously their own loan fees, but also the escrow fees, the commissions, the title insurance, transfer taxes, recording fees, notaries, all those sorts of things. So in a normal, how do I say normal, traditional, a lot of that stuff is split 50-50. You would pay your notary fees, they would pay their notary fees. You would pay half the escrow, they would pay half the escrow. So the idea behind net is we say $2 million. When escrow closes, you walk away with $2 million. So there's no guesswork. They cover every penny that gets spent over the $2 million. So initially in this process, once they went to the lender and realized the lender would loan them enough to purchase the property at roughly 2.2 for round numbers, so that $200,000 would cover all their fees, expenses, title insurance, all that sort of stuff. They realized by the time they put the money in the bank, plus the loan from their lender, Adelphi, they had nothing left. They would be closing escrow with $0 in the bank. So that's why they had come and asked for a carrier. They have done additional fundraising and have now decided it's better for them to exhaust more money in the bank than it is to carry and have a first mortgage to their lender and a second to you to cover their expenses. So with that, that brings us to the offer. So they are offering, just so you guys have dollars and cents, $2,135,600. Okay? With the idea being that they're asking you to credit back money at escrow. So again, I'm going to use really, really easy round numbers. If the net purchase price was $1, but they're going to buy it for $2, they ask you to credit them $1 so that they can use that dollar to cover closing costs. So when escrow closes, you get your dollar that they said you were going to net. So that's really, really simple. So now with the simple out of the way, purchase price of $2,135,600. They're asking for a credit back of $163,000, with the idea being that credit back. So the lender would put in the bank all $2,135,600 will be from the lender and from their bank account. Then when escrow closes, they would subtract all the fees, to which the Healing Streams believes all those fees is $163,000, so that you would walk away with $2 million. If anybody's done the math in their head, it's not $2 million. That net is $1,972,600. So it's really not a $2 million net. So when I called them out on it, they said, oh, if you look at these fees and those fees and everything else, the church is really going to net $2 million. To which my response is, well, that's great. That's not what your offer says. Your offer says you're offering 2.1356. You're crediting 163. The net's 1.9 and change. So the math doesn't work. So we'll get to the math at the very end to help you guys understand that. They're looking at a 90-day escrow. They're going to want the first 30 days to do their poking and prodding, and the last 60 days to actually get their loan funded, make sure all their documents are in order, make sure they can close escrow. So that's kind of the short of it. So I did put together a timeline just in case anybody asked. So assuming we opened escrow tomorrow, that would be day one. The close of escrow would be September 8th. So just so you kind of have an idea with that. The due diligence and all the poking and prodding would all be done by July 9th. Okay, so that's kind of where we are on that. The logistics of how this would work. They said they want the property delivered vacant. That would mean you're not here and there's no tenant here. So keep that one in the back of your mind, because what that means in California, if you have a nonprofit tenant, this is a new law from January 1st, a nonprofit tenant with less than 20 employees who's been a tenant for over a year now requires the same statutory notice as a residential property. So that's 60 days. So that would mean once the 30 days due diligence, Healing Stream says, yes, we've got our appraisal, we're ready to move forward. That same day, you would have to give all your tenants notice so that you can close escrow on day 90 and they're gone. And if one tenant drags their feet by a day, and I'm assuming the pantry probably needs quite a bit of time to get everything they have out, they can hold up escrow and say, we're not going to close till the pantry moves. So now it really may not be a 90-day escrow. So that brings me to my recommendation. So, assuming everybody is on track with where we are so far, my recommendation is actually to give them a counteroffer. The counteroffer would be a credit of $135,600. So with a purchase price of $2,135,600, you credit the $135,600, you net $2 million. If it costs them more than $135,600 to cover fees, expenses, and notaries and everything, that's on them because they're making a net offer. But now you know 100% you're walking away at $2 million. My other recommendation would be to say we are not going to deliver the property vacant. You're going to close escrow subject to our tenants. Here's all of our leases. You work it out with them. If you close escrow once you're the owner, if you don't want them here, you give them notice. Personally, I don't think any of the tenants are going to interfere with their use, since nobody's in the sanctuary on Sundays. And to the best of my knowledge, there's not a whole lot going on in those classrooms on Sundays after church. So they could still use a vast majority of the property, and more importantly, it gives them income. The tenants may not be paying quote-unquote market rent, but that's still income that they could use to pay back their mortgage. The other recommendation I would have, because they've talked about it, but they didn't put it in their offer, was giving you a 1-year lease back. So you could stay in the parish hall for a year after escrow at something like $1 a month. So you can take your time. You can relocate, you can merge, you can take your stuff and have additional garage sales. Do what you need to do to take care of your church. So those are my recommendations. And then as far as what happens after escrow closes, your lease back expires if we go that route, and you're essentially done as a church, then we can come back and visit as to what do we do with Trinity Hemet as a corporation/congregation. Okay, that was a lot to digest. Questions? Really? Okay. They're going to make you come up to the mic. Okay.
I think the only reason there's no questions is because just being the average person, I don't know which is the better way to go. I mean, I can sit there and go, maybe we should do this, maybe we should do that, but I'm going to fall back on his knowledge over mine. So that was it.
All right, I can actually address that. Okay, as far as which way is quote-unquote better, if we don't counter, we don't change anything, we go with what they offer. On day 91, you have to be moved out. You will have just under $2 million from the sale of the property, and we'll have to deal with tenants. If the tenants don't vacate, I guess the worst case scenario, if the pantry doesn't leave, for example, and refuse to leave, we're going to have to file an eviction with the court, and now you got another 4 or 5 months and ever how much money. It prolongs the process. So that's arguably the worst case scenario. Versus if you counter and they accept, and I don't know why they wouldn't, because we're not talking a whole lot, you're assured that you're going to walk away with $2 million at the end. No rush for you to leave at the end of 90 days. And you don't have to deal with your tenants. And they might be great tenants, and they might say, okay, no problem, we're going to leave. But you don't have the what if. The what if is off the table for you. So that's kind of where the counter, I think, is the better scenario. With the caveat that even if we do a year at $1 a month, you don't have to stay for a year. It would technically be a month-to-month agreement up to a maximum of 12 months. So if at month 3, you guys say, we've got everything out, we've all found other churches we're going to go to or merge with or whatever we're going to do, we're down to 4 people, why are we still doing this? Then you would just give 30-day notice and you can leave early. So you're not stuck with the 1 year. Okay? Does that kind of help with the good, bad? No. Yes, sir.
Well, I've seen the bid prior, but I still don't quite understand what happens to the $135,000 that we credit them. Is that something that they get, or is it something that they're supposed to pay us back?
Okay. I get it. Okay.
I mean, if they're going to have to pay us back, what are the terms of that, or whatever?
All right. All right. You don't get it back. They don't get it either. So I'll just use an easy 2.1 million. If it's 2.1 million, $2,100,000 with a $100,000 credit back, what happens is they get their money from their lender. Let's say their lender's giving them 1.5 million. They put 600,000 in the bank. Now they've got 1.2 million not in the bank, in escrow. Instead of that extra 100,000 coming to you, you literally credit it back to them. So they can now use that extra 100,000 to cover all the escrow fees and expenses rather than giving it to you. But you have to do the credit because the lender will only loan on the lower of 2 things, the appraised value or the purchase price. So if we were to say, no, it's 2 million net, no credit, no anything, they have to put that extra 100,000 in the bank on top of everything else. So it's a paper transaction. That 100,000 really never changes hands. It stays in escrow and pays the fees and expenses, and then you get your check or your wire for the even 2. Did that answer it or make it worse? No, it didn't answer it? Oh. Okay.
They're going to form their own church.
That's fair. Did that raise any other questions or make it any worse for anybody in the back? It's kind of abstract. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? No, there's one coming.
I do.
I don't know who's going out.
I'd just like to say, remind you that if we counteract or
What's it called?
Just a counteroffer.
and it takes another couple months, we're running out of money. I mean, we could drag it out a long time. The thing we were a little upset about is we thought we'd get at least $2 million. But 1.9 something, that's not too bad. We're just going to walk away after we pay everything. A lot of money that we'll get to use and decide what we want to do with. What's our new mission and where are we going? Those decisions can be made once we make our decision. Right now we're still in limbo and we haven't sold it. So if you have a question, you need to come up here. Sorry. Come on, Tammy. I just want to remind you of that. So, again, their offer had, their bid had some, we wondered about that extra money too, how we were going to get it. But now I think after the 5th time Ryan has
Sorry.
explained to me, I start to understand, oh, we're not going to see that money, it's going to get credited, and et cetera. We're still going to end up with 1.9 something.
I want to ask Mary and other people who have been working on this for so many years, what their real opinion is. And, you know, Ryan has emphasized the benefit of making a counteroffer. I think not so much for the money as for the issue of tenants and the issue of us being able to stay an additional year. Now, Mary, you brought up that a counteroffer will involve more time that we may not have. What do you think, Mary, about this whole thing about the tenants and staying here a year?
Well, I also read the first offer, and it was just a rough draft, and they had already offered to let us stay for a year for free, pretty much, which was very kind of them. They came up with that on their own. So that part does give us some leeway to get our act together. After this is all done, we can make a good decision where we want to go and what we want to do. The bishop's office will have some things to say about that too, and Pastor Tom will be able to address those kind of questions. But, you know, basically, I'm torn a little. I wasn't real happy, right, Ryan? We've been on the phone. I wasn't real happy that, you know, they wanted this, but they've come up with all the money they can scrape together. And there aren't many churches out there right now that have hundreds of thousands of dollars lying around to make down payments on a big church, you know, and then get $1.6 million loan on top of that, and then be able to pay when they get here for things that do need to be fixed. And we haven't had an offer like this in 7 years, it's been, since we've been trying to get rid of our buildings. So I don't know. I'm torn. I wasn't thrilled.
I think I can answer for you really easy.
Okay.
The short answer is you have nothing to lose by countering that. Their worst case scenario is they're going to say no, and you go, okay, well, what about where you were? So I don't see any downside, and as far as time, you might lose a week. I don't. They are chomping at the bit. I get calls and texts from their agent all the time wanting an update. And their church works extremely quickly. It's the board is mostly family, so they already know what direction they're going to go and what they want to do. And the simple answer is I can always go back to them. Like we're not signing anything today. I can reach out to her tomorrow and say, look, this is really the direction they want to go. And she's going to say either, yeah, we can make that work, or no, we can't. And if they can't make work, go, okay, then we'll just go with the offer as presented. I really see no lose for you, in my honest opinion. I don't see any harm to it. And you had what's that? Oh, you had a comment? And I'll repeat the comment for you if you want. Not your comment. Your comment.
Okay. Well, no.
Oh.
I was just
Okay.
going to say an option,
Okay.
basically.
And that's not a good option.
We don't want to go ahead and do that. But a week, we can afford a week.
Yeah, honestly, I would have an answer by the end of the week. So basically I guess what I would ask today as far as a congregation, assuming everybody says we're fine with the offer at the bare minimum, I would say direction to me on congregational approval is please go back and counter with X, and if they don't approve X, we'll move forward with the offer as presented. Is that fair? And then I don't have to come back to you again and say, well, they said no to the offer, so now let's counter. Now let's go back to the offer and we have to meet again. So you're giving me an ultimatum. If that doesn't work, we'll take this.
All right. I'm going to have to defer to Pastor Tom a question I have. The way that the ballot was written up, yes is I vote to accept the written offer to purchase as written. I think we all agree that we're not going to do that first then.
That would be plan B.
That would be like maybe next week if they don't go for it. The second choice is no, I vote not to accept the written offer to purchase as written, which we could vote for today. And then a counter offer is the third choice. Counter offer. I vote for a counter offer with the following suggested changes, and you can write in there if you want, but I think he basically explained it to us right now. So that's what your choices will be today. Does that sound okay, Pastor Tom? You've worked with churches in this situation now. Would you like to come up and address it?
Who's keeping the minutes? Or would you go back and recreate them off the video?
Yeah.
Because as long as we cover it in the minutes.
The secretaries are here.
Okay.
The secretaries are.
My suggestion is as follows, so that you don't have to get back together again for another meeting, which requires 3 weeks' notice and all of those things that you have to do as you did for this meeting, is that you authorize the sale of the property under one of those 3 terms, and then empower the leadership to make the final decision. Okay? They're locked into one of those three scenarios, and that's the only way they can dispose of the property. I suggest that because, number one, the congregation is the only one who has the authority to actually authorize the sale of property. But to avoid having to get back together in another month, if you can reach one of those 3 scenarios and you're all comfortable with it, then approve that as stated.
I have a question. Does it
Wait, get up to the microphone, please.
Go ahead.
I have a question for you, Pastor Tom. Does it legally have to say on the ballot exactly what, in exact terms, like
You mean
the counter offer as presented by Ryan? What does it?
Okay.
Is there a legal thing here?
I would suggest that we vote yes. And then it says after the yes, I vote to accept the written offer. And then it says, to purchase. And then it says as written. I would cross out the as written. Can we do that?
No, so I think my recommendation would be the counter. I vote for a counter offer with the following suggested changes. And the suggestion changes would be as offered plus discretion of the board. That's what you were kind of going with? So it's kind of a combination of 1 and 3.
Okay, so it would be the last one then, as offered.
I vote for the counter offer with the following suggested changes. So the counter offer would be offer as presented following discretion of the board, or something of similar
The
import,
council, yeah.
because I think the minutes would properly reflect we all mean the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so legally doesn't have to say that.
Well, I don't know.
As long as the minutes.
Is how many? I'm not sure. I could remember exactly what to write by the time we get it, and so we may need some dictation of what to write.
The short of it would be at the discretion of the council.
Okay, so it's option
Refresh
2.
her. We can't hear her.
Oh, she's clarifying as to what would be the write-in. So the write-in for the counter, and you could use your own words, would basically be at the discretion of the council. Council or board?
Council.
Council.
And choose option 2.
Option 3, counter offer.
Counter offer.
And I'm not telling you how to do this. If you want to go option 1, go option 1. If you want option 2, option 2. If you choose option 3, the write-in would be something similar to at the discretion of the council.
And then we wouldn't have to meet again?
Correct.
Oh, great.
Because you've essentially said, you have essentially come to an agreement in here that you're going to counter, and if they don't accept the counter, you're going to take their offer, right? Do I see enough heads nodding for that? Okay. So if I see that, the council has that direction. So you cannot vary that going forward. Here's the attorney. I'm not a constitutional I'm a constitutional person, but I'm not
Expert.
well,
You're an expert.
I'm an expert, but I'm not an interpreter. Robert's Rules of Order and that, there's a parliamentarian, there's the word I'm looking for. I'm not a parliamentarian. Okay, so, but if I understand correctly, you would vote for the counter offer. If the counter offer is refused, you would take the original offer that they have offered. Okay? So that is the authority of the council that you're giving them to do. Basically, you're voting to sell.
Does that raise any other questions? Do you want to call for a vote?
No,
Your parliamentary call for a vote, or you would just pass it
Yeah,
up?
we do paper ballots.
Oh.
Did you have pens? We might have to share pens and pencils.
I'm not gonna be able to vote, but I'll just see it.
Anything we're doing today? Just to kill some time?
All the votes are counted. You can say a few words.
Shouldn't take long. She's going back to counter.
Okay, all the votes have been cast. Okay, while they're counting that, I'm just going to share a few words because I have to head for San Bernardino at another church stop. Okay, someone can tell me the vote total when it's final. We as a congregation, we as a synod now will work with you as a congregation as to what your next plans are. I want you to understand a couple of things. Number one, the money that you will have in the bank is yours, but it's not yours. It's God's. And by law, that money cannot be used for any personal, I have to give this disclaimer, so please, cannot be used for any personal gain of anybody in the congregation. Okay? We have had congregations try to do that. We have had people try to do that. Nonprofit money needs to stay with nonprofit. You and I are not nonprofits by tax law, okay? We're individuals who file your income tax every year. So that's just to say that. So we are here now to partner with you as to what the future direction will go. I'm not going to get into the weeds on all of this at this point. That will come at another time. But you have work ahead of you. You've kind of been in limbo for a number of years, okay? Now the real work begins. And there's some tough decisions that need to be made. What are you going to do as a community of faith? And how are you going to respond to what God is asking you to do in the mission of the church? So that's that piece. I am happy to partner with you. That's my role as a mission director in the Synod. And hopefully I don't have to give those disclaimers anymore. We can just proceed forward with what are your potential options as a congregation. Any relocation will require a synod council vote of the synod. Usually not a problem if it's well thought out. Okay? So, that's that. I'm heading off to San Bernardino. Thank you, Ryan. Ryan and I know each other well. We work with each other all the time. For good or for bad, it's all good, okay, in my mind. So, there we go. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Pastor. Well, results are 5 saying yes and 15 saying let's go with the counteroffer. So the counteroffer is the way we go. Thank you, everybody, for your wise decisions. And I know it's hard to make decisions. Like you can tell, I was torn too. One way or the other. But it's because it's just not that. It isn't an easy thing. So, I am excited about our future, and I'm excited for the new church. They are very excited to be part of this campus and start, worshiping here. So, when you get to meet them, I hope you do. They're very lovely, very friendly, and I can almost promise you every single person here is going to get 2 or 3 hugs because they can't talk without having them. They're so friendly. So they're really nice people.
Any last minute questions?